Imagine how it must have been when families first came this way. There were wide rivers and streams of liquid silver flowing endlessly free. Mountains like temples hurled into cloud. Horizons limited only by the curve of the earth. Solitudes deep as a holy mind. Here was a wild land abounding with the spirit and substance of life. A land where one could live free of the complexities, deficiencies, and ambiguities of the places left behind. Here was a place both strange and familiar, like a half-forgotten dream of what life could be. Over the years, there was nature, of course, but there was also work, honest work to earn one's way. Work that nature provided, work in the forests and the mines and on the railroad, building homes and communities, building a future. But along the way to where we are now, something troubling happened. In some places, the balance between nature and the human community became strained, then broken. The resources that were once so abundant became depleted. The forests, the minerals, the wildlife, all those things that brought families to Montana in the first place were severely diminished. And as the resources were lost, so were the jobs that were dependent on those resources. So now, here we are, knowing we must put things back in balance again, trying to imagine how it would be if we could restore the land and the water and the wildlife. And what of the jobs, the work we once did here to earn our way? Two dreams. One has to do with nature, one with our economy. Imagine how it would be if we could restore both dreams and make them real. A reality based on restoration. It was Chief Seattle who said, "Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth." He was the first to see that all things are connected: the mountain, the river, the bear, the wind. In recent years, we have made a powerful commitment to the stewardship of the natural environment. But what of the lands and rivers and forests that offered up their resources and were worked to exhaustion? Is it enough to say we are wiser now and will not repeat the mistakes of the past? Or should we not also devote our energy to something more, restoring the health and capacity of the natural resources that were damaged along the way? Is it enough to mourn the jobs that we lost? Or should we not create new jobs to replace the old and provide the foundation for even more jobs in the future? Consider the story of a legendary river, the Blackfoot, one of the great natural treasures of the West. But over the past century, human actions and apathy have nearly ruined it. There are two dams of concern: the Clark Forks Milltown Dam near the mouth of the Blackfoot and the Mike Horse Dam at the headwaters. Consider the Milltown Dam. It was built to power two sawmills, supplying beams for copper mines upriver. In June of 1908, disaster struck. It rained for 33 consecutive days, and a record flood came surging down the Clark Fork River. It brought contaminated mine waste from Anaconda and Butte. Several million cubic yards of spoil containing high concentrations of arsenic, lead, and other metals settled behind the dam. It remains there to this day, leaking poisons into the aquifer. Plans are in place to remove the contaminants, tear down the dam, and restore this river system. Once again, the Clark Fork and the Blackfoot can be free-flowing, world-class trout fisheries. On the headwaters of the Blackfoot, the Mike Horse Dam is a toxic time bomb. Once before, in 1975, the dam gave way and high concentrations of zinc and lead were flushed into the Blackfoot. West Slope cutthroat populations were decimated. One good spring storm and history is bound to repeat itself. The old dam is made of just dirt and mud. When she blows, some 2 million tons of toxic tailings will flow into the Blackfoot. What will it take to remove these two major threats to the environment and to the quality of life along the river? Ironically, the skills, equipment, and resources it took to build the dams are the same skills, equipment, and resources it requires to remove them. We made the mess, we can clean it up. But it will require a new kind of thinking, a new kind of coalition between labor, business people, and environmentalists. In this and other restoration projects, the benefits are more than ecological. Restoration brings a community together, both workers and environmentalists. The community becomes focused on a common good, re-engaged with nature in the act of bringing things back to life and value. And on the economic side, it creates new job and career opportunities, a new industry to supplement traditional industries and replace the jobs we've lost. You'd never believe that over there was once a huge copper smelter. The great stack coughed poisons into the air. Creeks ran thick and red, but now these wasted lands are being restored, reclaimed for a different but useful purpose. Workers took land that had been thrown away and created something of a great economic and social value, and at the same time created jobs. But the Anaconda Project merely scratches the surface of what can be done. There are thousands of abandoned mine sites in Montana that still leak toxins into surface and groundwater systems. There is much to be done. Restoring forests and creeks, building new trails, removing old, poorly constructed logging roads that carve scars across the landscape. And to do all this, it will require skilled workers, equipment, and talent. Time was when Spring Creek at Brewery Flats was incredibly productive. But then the railroad came and the stream was straightened into a ditch filled with diesel spills from the locomotives. Spring Creek was an eyesore, but the community got together. Sportsmen, businessmen, environmentalists, workers, and neighbors. And this is the result. 8 miles of meandering stream, walking trails. Bringing this stretch of Spring Creek back to life brought the community together. The creek was restored. It was work that restored the stream and maybe taught us it takes work to restore a community. In 1885, 12 miles south of Miles City, a diversion dam was built on the Tongue River, one of many dams on the Tongue as it diverts water into canals that irrigate crops. Trouble is, thousands upon thousands of fish were captured by the dams, ending their ancient spawning migrations. Many fish were either flushed out onto the fields or trapped as prey. How could we irrigate our crops without killing the fish? Something had to be done. A bypass is being constructed so that fish can move up and down the Tongue in numbers not seen in a century. If it can be done here at the 12-mile dam, it can be done at many other dams on the Tongue and Yellowstone. For thousands of years, tribes of the Northwest Rockies periodically set fire to their land as a means of restoring decadent growth. In the 1920s, federal fire suppression regulations ended this practice on the Flathead Reservation, and the land suffered as a result. In the early 1990s, the Tribal Council of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes devised a new plan. They called it Bringing Back the Fire. Not only did they restore the land, they restored values and spiritual traditions that had always been tied to the land. On a ranch in far eastern Montana, cattle graze on grass as fine as any in the West. But there was a time, a few decades ago, when this land was parched and overgrazed, and each year supported fewer and fewer cows. Then in the late 1980s, a fire burned the property. It was really a chance to start over and do it right. They began a rest rotation management system. When they began, they were running 200 cattle on overgrazed land. Now the ranch runs 300 head with plenty of grass to spare. Eastern Montana, lands that seem timeless, that appear as they must have been when ancient wanderers came this way. But you would be surprised how it looked just a few years ago. Since it was established in 1968, the Rosebud Mine has disturbed some 15,000 acres of landscape. It removed 12 million tons of much-needed coal annually from beneath the earth. Each year, mine workers reclaim about 200 acres. The objective is to restore the original contours of the land. These jobs are to replace the topsoil that had been removed and then revegetate with a diversity of native grasses. Now, once again, the site is a stage for the dance of sharp-tailed grouse. This is a watershed moment in the history of Montana. We are moving to a whole new era in our relationship to the natural world. Environmental restoration is an ethic. It is also a culture and an industry. A culture that merges social, economic, and ecological forces to focus on a common goal. a blending of ecology and enterprise, a new industry that restores despoiled landscapes while providing jobs and revenues and recreational opportunities. Just imagine how it can be, the good it can do. It's good for our economy, good for small business, good for workers, good for the environment, and good for the soul.